Hello, I'm Avi Lewis. Welcome back to On the Map. Last week I spoke with Ayaan Hirsi Ali, the fierce critic of Islam and author of a big best-selling memoir. She's had company atop bestseller lists for weeks, with a host of new books attacking religion. The Origin of This Species is The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. It's a withering polemic by the world's leading atheist. He passed through Toronto recently and we had a chance to sit down and chat. Here's the interview. We start with a clip from Dawkins' documentary, also called The God Delusion. It aired recently here on CBC News World.
I'm a scientist, and I believe there is a profound contradiction between science and religious belief. There is no well-demonstrated reason to believe in God. The 21st century should be an age of reason, yet irrational, militant faith is back on the march.
What is the danger of religion in the world today? What is the concrete danger that you're trying to?
I think it's probably to do with faith, and the fact that faith is belief without reason, belief without evidence. And I think you can see that if large numbers of people in the world have been brought up to believe that faith is an absolute virtue, and you don't have to defend it, you don't have to justify it, but they believe it so strongly that they are prepared to kill for it. And in a way, why wouldn't you be prepared to kill for it? If you really, really, really believe that you're right and they are wrong. Whereas if you instead regard evidence as the important criterion for believing something, then you wouldn't go and kill somebody for it, because you might think, well, I might be wrong. I mean, I might change my mind if somebody brings forward other evidence.
What's the difference in your mind between the hypocrisy of religion and other kinds?
What other kinds of hypocrisy are you thinking of there?
Well, let's talk about Bush directly.
Okay.
Here's a man who is a fundamentalist on a number of levels. He's bringing freedom to the Middle East in his version of reality. How am I to rate that fundamentalism against his religious fundamentalism, which you claim is a source of much greater evil?
I think he's deluded about what he was doing in the Middle East. I think it's conceivable that he genuinely believed that he was bringing freedom and democracy to Iraq. I mean, with hindsight, it seems preposterous that anybody could think that, and many of us didn't need the hindsight. I mean, he can't be as stupid as he looks, but nevertheless, he probably is quite a stupid man. And I think it may be that he sincerely believed it. And I suppose he sincerely, in fact, I'm sure he sincerely believes in his religion too. So I'm not sure that hypocrisy is quite the right word.
There was a debate in the early phase of the Republican primaries where 3 of the 10 candidates raised their hand when asked who here doesn't believe in evolution. What does that tell you about America these days?
I'm relieved it was only 3 out of 10, given it was the Republican Party. McCain was the one who was specifically asked.
Do you believe in evolution?
Yes. He said he did believe in evolution, but I noticed that he paused for a long time before saying that, obviously not pausing to know whether he does believe in evolution, of course he does, but probably pausing to sort of think, how is this going to play?
Yeah. May I just add to that?
Sure.
And then he tried to save it afterwards by talking about some idiotic stuff about, I see the hand of God in the Grand Canyon.
I believe in evolution, but I also believe when I hike the Grand Canyon and see it at sunset that the hand of God is there also.
Why do you go after moderates so fiercely?
I wouldn't say I go after them fiercely. I do think that there's a tendency for people to think, oh, if only we all stayed in the middle, we'd be all right. I think that the absurdity of believing in the supernatural without evidence, of erecting faith as a virtue, even if the majority of people who do that are harmless, nice, gentle people, which they are, they do prepare the ground for extremists. They make the world safe for extremists, because we are left in a way defenseless against them, because we've got the moderates in there who've taught us all our lives that faith is a virtue, we have to respect it. You don't have to ask them to justify their beliefs.
What you're effectively arguing is that peacenik, social justice campaigning Quakers are helping create the climate in which people bomb abortion clinics.
You've
And that those
biased
people-
that. I mean, you've put that in a very extreme way because...
Sure, well,
because
yes, you do that from time to time
yeah,
yourself,
I mean,
actually.
Well, I mean, by moderates, I took it that you meant the large, important churches like the Roman Catholic Church. And so in that sense, maybe they're not so moderate after all. I mean, showing some sympathy for the people who wanted to kill Salman Rushdie and burn his books, showing some sympathy for the view, indeed advocating the view, that abstinence is a better way to control AIDS than condoms, actually spreading the lie that condoms let through the HIV virus, which is spread in Africa, where it really matters, by quite senior people in the Roman Catholic Church. Now, they are called moderate. I suppose, in a sense, what I'm saying now is they're not as moderate as you think they are.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if you worry about actually turning off people who fundamentally agree with you by being so dismissive, so withering in some of your attacks.
It's a difficult one, that. I think there's a lot to be said. Now we're talking political tactics, and I may have employed the wrong tactics for certain people.
Ted Haggard certainly called you arrogant.
Well, of course.
Sir, there could be many things that you know well. There are other things that you don't know well. As you age, you'll find yourself wrong on some things, right on some other things. But please, in the process of it, don't be arrogant.
I mean, there actually is something that's worth being withering about believing in something which, if you actually step back from it, you know is as unsubstantiated as magic spells in Grimm's fairy tales. I mean, it's exactly the same thing. And yet, and nobody respects anybody who literally believes if you prick your thumb, you'll turn into a frog or something. And yet, the things that religious people do believe are every bit as absurd. And yet, we're all expected to respect it because it's called religion rather than called fairy tales.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
When we come back, I'll attempt to overthrow the official story of the Gaza coup d'etat right after this.